There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Axiom TV. I'm your host, Jason V. Human, V meaning vehemently. Today we have a very special guest, Lucas King, who's been in such debates with the likes of Young Pharaoh as well as Tariq Nasheed. And he's also interviewed Jared Taylor as well from the American Renaissance.
That is correct. Thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate you for inviting me onto the show. I just want to warn everybody, I have got a nasty flu virus. I just took some Tylenol, so I can't speak for too long, but everything's just like I literally crawled out of bed and, well, I had to go somewhere. But anyway, I crawled out of bed. I'm not even showered. I have nothing prepared. I'm just going to shoot from the hip, so I hope you don't mind. But anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And yeah, absolutely.
We appreciate that, Lucas, man. Definitely appreciate you braving being under the weather to discuss to engage in meaningful dialogue and an exchange of ideas.
Absolutely.
I wanted to start with your perspective or get a feeling for what your beliefs on race and race relations, how they are currently in not only in America but across the world, because it's basically the same, just in a little change and variation, and as well as how do you feel that they should be?
Okay, so that's a great question. It's kind of a loaded question, and forgive me if it goes on a little long, but that's a very important question. So race, I think, it's a very important thing. Now, this is how I feel. I'm not so I'm going to disappoint a lot of my subscribers because they saw the Jared Taylor interview and then they think that I'm in the alt-right, which I'm not really, because I'm not anti anything. The only thing I am is anti-white. I believe that white people in America at the modern times, not historically, but in modern times, have lost any and all racial consciousness. And what they do is they basically, it's self-flagellation. It's basically ethnomasochism is a word. I believe that modern white people, okay, so if you think of most black people think of themselves as a black man, most white people do not think of themselves as a white man. And I believe that what's healthy for white people is not, I don't have any end goals. I don't have any like I don't take it as far as Jared Taylor or Richard Spencer, where they say they want to, they want an ethno state. I don't take it that far. I don't have any, I just believe that white people should have a racial consciousness. They should have an identity, and that's okay as an interest group. In an ideal world, if nobody else thought this way, like in an ideal world, like where everybody is individualistic and that nobody thinks along racial lines, then I would be completely fine with not thinking on racial lines. That would be ideal ultimately, but it doesn't work that way. The entire world thinks upon identity except for Western white people. In Eastern European, they do. They actually have identity. They have racial identity there. But pretty much all in the Western Europe and America and Canada, white people have no racial consciousness at all. And as a matter of fact, if anything, it's to a negative. If regarding like the reason why I debated like people like the reason why I debated Tariq Nasheed was my first one. I actually just called in his show after going back and forth on email, and he kind of took me. I was really nervous. I was like my first time. And didn't go very well. And also I kind of thought that they made it seem like we agreed on a lot of things. And then after he hung up, then he started talking crap. Anyways, doesn't matter. The Young Pharaoh debate was really, the reason what got me onto that was because just like black people don't, like, for example, I don't think it's necessary for what Jared Taylor didn't have to go that far. There was parts that I felt very uncomfortable, and I kind of felt like I had mixed feelings about that interview, because the reason I gave him a lot of praise, which is true, is that he was one of the very first people that I've actually learned that wasn't like a neo-Nazi or some embarrassing skinhead or something like that, but actually he gave me a racial consciousness. He's one of the first people. But then he goes a little too far, and I don't think it was necessary to be that hurtful. And some of the things he said, it's just not necessary. My thing is that I have mixed race kids. I have like 3 white friends. That's it. I am a Buddhist. I am one of the most diverse people you'll ever meet. I don't dislike anyone. I am literally just, I just believe that that white people should have an eye consciousness, should be proud of themselves, and should think on, that should have some idea. at least some iota of an interest group. Well, young Pharaoh takes it the extreme opposite. Not only he goes so far that not only are all the world's problems because of white people, okay, and we're going to have that discussion. Not only that, but really that you are subhuman. You are like everything is a conspiracy, and that not only that, but you're not even human. You're literally a cave-dwelling beast that was a mistake of creation, and that okay, that's when I wanted to be. I'm like, all right, dude, let's go. All right, this is ridiculous. So
Right.
to just sum up real quick, my ideas on race is that I am a white man, and I take pride in that in my heritage. I have an Asian wife, and there's no problem with that at all. And that white people should have an identity. It's healthy, but it doesn't mean hating anybody else. It doesn't mean that for a white interest means we should take the interest away from others. It's not a zero-sum game. Just because we think on it, having a benefit for us does not necessarily mean a negative to you. I mean, yes, you can say that there's things we could make policies that are going to be at the detriment of other races, but I'm not a proponent for that. I'm saying that this flu is making it more difficult to talk. I'm getting tired of my
that's all right. That's all right. Let's go.
I'll let you go. That's a nutshell. Go ahead.
Yeah, because you covered a lot there, and I think you actually gave me a new insight into what you actually mean when you talk about your form of identity type of politics or concepts. And when I hear, say, Richard Spencer or Jared Taylor, you're right. They do seem to have an end goal. They do have some kind of like they have some kind of fulcrum that they see. But what I'm wondering is like you said, it's not there. It would be nice if we didn't have to have identity. But since we do are at that point, then we should at least be engaged in each of our individual identities. Now, when it comes to race, I look at when I look at the history of like Greece, how Thales went to Egypt, or how we have Julius Caesar marrying or being in a relationship with Cleopatra, an Egyptian queen, or is it Mark Antony as well? To me, it's kind of almost clear that there was a time in history when identity was not like a primary aspect of society.
Yes.
I just wonder if you don't feel in a way like it's almost artificial what's going on in society in relation to race.
Good point. You know what? I actually agree with a lot of what you just said, and other reason why I'm not true, even though I talk about the word like racial identity, I'm not an identitarian, which is the reason why is okay. So two things. You are the reason why I believe that race is really not, that's why I'm going to get probably some people not subscribe to me anymore. I'm probably going to get lambasted for a lot of this because, again, after the Jared Taylor, I got this spike in subscriptions, and a lot of them are probably all people. But there, for example, in a multiracial state has existed successfully. For example, in Rome, Rome was a multiracial state, but multicultural is work. But the last thing I wanted, which I kind of forgot to say before, which is the main philosophy that I subscribe to, which takes priority. The reason why I can't be an identitarian is because I believe that the highest principle is individualism. For example, what is the worst thing that we have in racial relations is right now in America is that you have a possible descendant of a slave owner, a possible descendant of a slave. And yes, maybe possibly in this hypothetical situation, the person who had a heritage of a slave owner, let's just say he's in a better position, he's middle class. Let's say the person who was the heritage of a slave, assuming that they didn't have her grandparents weren't African migrants after the slave. I'm just saying, let's just presume
right.
Was a slave owner. In this case, all of a sudden they're at this problem where okay. Now all of a sudden the white guy's blamed, and now all of a sudden the black person's blamed. Bullshit, okay? At the end of the day, we're individuals. I didn't ask to be where I was born. You did not ask to be born who you were. So
Good
at the
point.
end of the day, we must focus on the individual as much as we can. If we make politics based on skin color, it's very, very superficial. Because what about, even if, okay, now I'm struggling here. But anyway, just not my brain's.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, individualism, I think, overtakes identitarianism because at the end of the day, you are robbing. The biggest injustice is presuming that because of some factor somebody has no control over, that person should now be limited or should be rewarded. And that's not fair. And that I think that individualism is a higher ideal than collectivism.
And you shouldn't feel bad about lose some subscribers or not, because I'll tell you right now, Lucas. I made a video the other day about on the Richard Spencer and Tariq Nasheed debate, and in it I not only criticized Mr. Spencer, but more so I criticized Mr. Nasheed for not allowing Mr. Spencer to fully expound on his philosophy.
Yeah.
Instead, or like ambushed him, kind of like he did with you on that phone call, where he just like was, I'm smarter than you, I'm big and bad, to his playing to his audience.
Yeah.
And then I criticized him, so I got a whole lot of I got a lot of alt-right compliments, but I also got a lot of black people that complimented me, but more so the uneducated. I could tell they're all uneducated because they only stick to 4 words: you are a coon. And I'm like, really? That's
white people. You're a cuck. You're a cuck. That's the word we use. The black people say coon. Say cuck.
Thank you for educating me on that, because I see that everywhere, cuck. And I was like, what does that mean?
It's just like coon for black people. Cuck is for white people.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
All right.
So
this is what I'm saying.
They cannibalize each other. They cannibalize each other. The alt-right, if you're not alt-right enough, so like me, I will call liberals, like some dumb fucking social justice warrior liberal, I'll call them a cuck. But then I'll get called cuck because I'm not extreme or alt-right enough. It happens all the time. It's just like in the black community. If you're not as pro-black or whatever, you know, if you're not as militant, then you're now a coon. No matter, and they cannibalize each other. It's crazy.
And this is my thing. We've reached to we've engaged in that so much. It's reached to a point that if you disagree with anything a black person says as a black person, I'm not allowed to disagree with anything a black person says, or
a thought leader black person. Yeah, like one of the thought leaders. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the same for you. You're not allowed to disagree with what a white guy says, because then all of a sudden, regardless if it's wrong or unintelligent, all of a sudden you must be a cuck and I must be a coon.
Yeah.
My thing is, I want to unpack. What do you feel racism means? What is racism to you? What's the definition of racism to you?
Racism to me means that it's the belief that, well, number one, it's discrimination in its belief. It's belief in superiority. So I believe that, yeah, evolutionary, there are differences between races. I mean, overall, black.
Hold on, real quick, Lucas. Before you go into your personal definition, I just want to expound on the objective definition, the societal definition of racism. What to you, coming up in society, have you taken racism to mean?
What's the word I'm looking for? The persecution, the discrimination, the belief that one race in its entirety is inferior or it's bad. Like I hate this person because of their skin color. I need to put it in simple terms.
So would you say it is a love for one's race,
No.
as opposed to any other race?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. No, that's different. I would say that it's like excluded. You don't have to. You take out that part and just the part of condemnation of another race for their race because of the race. You're prejudging them and saying they're bad. You dislike a particular race regardless of the individual. I wouldn't add that part about love for one, because technically a racist could be somebody who's a really unhappy person. Maybe they don't like their own people either. You know, so I don't think it necessarily includes that.
Yeah, love. I shouldn't have used love. What I should have said was an exclusion and oppression of another race, and not so within one's own race.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah, we can agree on that.
With that said, do other white people harm other white people that you know of?
Yes, absolutely.
And I definitely know that other black people harm other blacks.
Absolutely. Yes.
So if tribalism and racism had any validity,
Mhm.
should those things be happening?
No, I mean, ideally, of course not. Right?
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If there was really such a thing as racism, or some people like to say, oh, we're born with tribalism, we're born separated, then how come white kids, Oriental kids, black kids, Indian kids, and I mean the Punjabi Indian, not the Native American,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
we could throw Native American child in there as well. They can all go to daycare. Remember, the claim of racism is that we're inherently born with tribalism and racism within us, right?
Yeah, but I think we're
How
gonna.
come those kids can all go together to the same daycare and they don't start arguing and tearing each other apart instantly?
Well, scientifically, we're gonna have to part ways a little bit there. I do believe that tribalism is a natural thing. It's not a good thing per se. It can be. When you have Team B is tribalist and then you have Team A is not tribalist, then you have a problem. But if neither of them are tribalist, then ultimately that would be the ideal. But as it is on the ground, children tend to play together, and they don't have, regardless of race. But they've done studies that as soon as it gets to about high school level or junior high level, then all of a sudden that's when you start to see the lunchrooms separated. That's when, like, you see prisons there. Well, prison's a whole different another topic, but yes.
Actually, it's not.
Go ahead.
Actually, it's not. I sorry to interrupt you on that there, Lucas, but actually, it's not, my friend. You actually went to that for a logical reason, because it's actually it's coherent. Schools, prisons, they're all designed by the same architects.
Yes.
First off,
I would just say prison's extreme, though. The prison was the extreme
right.
example. Yeah.
Prison is extreme, but
Yeah.
if look at how prisons are set up. I did a video on this. Free society is basically a state prison. Remember that we're in an empire. Would you say that the United States is an empire?
Absolutely, yes. It is absolutely an empire, and it's a soft empire where they don't go there and they have like controlling armies. Where they bring an army and they colonize. It's a soft empire. It's a corporatist empire where what we do is we go, like, we will corrupt regimes across the world, and if they don't want to do our bidding, then we send our military. And it's always about dead kids in the street. It's funny, when there's a terrorist attack, you don't see any pictures of dead kids in the TV. But whenever we want to invade a country, all of a sudden you see pictures of dead kids, because it just, women, it pulls at their heartstrings. But anyways. But what we do is we want our will around the world. We want our businesses, we want our companies set up, and we want them to be number one, and we will take our armies. It's a horrible thing. I can't stand our foreign policy. I can't stand it.
Okay, and where I was going with, and I can't stand it either, by the way. We definitely we're doing a lot of agreeing so far, Lucas. Another where I was going with the empire, us being an empire. Now that we both agree that the United States is an empire, is that by that very definition, therefore, are we not in a police state if you are not one of the rulers or rulers of said empire?
Can you ask the question a different way? Like, try to elaborate. I don't know if I understand.
Okay, I'll give it to you. Do you notice that regardless of who the police officers kill, that they barely are prosecuted or receive any actual societal consequences? So do you notice that the news basically from the time you're young, actually, you're actually almost subliminally suggested and taught
Oh yeah.
that the police are of a higher value, the politicians and the lawyers are the rich are of a higher value than you, the individual. And also that the number of police agencies that we have within the country. How many different sets of police are we to have? Thereby, this is why I say that an empire is virtually a police state. There's even militias that we don't even know about that pretend to be from the street. Say, I'll even go with you on the bikers on this. The 1% bikers, and even some of the street gangs, the Bloods and the Crips. Do you think I'm naive enough to believe that that's not basically a militia for the empire without even knowing it?
I don't know if
And
I
let's
agree
not
with you.
forget, before you answer, Lucas, Let's not forget these people have had years to study human behavior and how to control human beings through suggestion.
Well, okay, so there's a few things we can agree on, and but I don't know if it's rooted in the same. Okay, so like the police. Number one, yeah, but it's more because I'm a libertarian. I believe in. I think government, when you have power, it corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I think that we have all these police agencies and the FBI and the CIA, and I think a lot of them should be dissolved and centralized. I mean, excuse me, not decentralized, but localized. And when the second thing you mentioned, which is that police are not prosecuted as much, and this is actually true, but this is kind of more like, I don't think it's really a conspiracy. I think it's just that the police have, I mean, it's true no matter what race it is. It's hard to get, police look out for each other. You know, they take care of each other. It's a big gang, if you will. But it doesn't mean I'm anti-police, though. I mean, police are necessary. They serve a necessary purpose. I just think we should have a lot more checks and balances on them. I'm against police brutality. I'm definitely against the police state. But would I agree that biker gangs and street gangs are a part of the police state? No, I don't. You got to convince me on that a little more. I don't know what you mean. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
Okay. What starts these? What starts biker gangs? Where did street gangs come from? What if you look at the history of these? If you look at the history of both, with the biker gangs, they say that that's from soldiers coming back from Vietnam, soldiers coming back from the Gulf War, soldiers coming back from war. Well, who keeps wars?
Okay, but that's not
the street gangs.
That's what they were started for. I don't think that they were. I mean, I think that's more just a coincidence. Because then, what would you say about the Bloods and the Crips or the Latin Kings or MS-13? They don't have the same history. The biker gangs are more of an organized crime. Actually, that's why they're older. They're not younger. They're not street toughs. They're tough. They're like tough older guys, but they're organized crime because they're older. But a lot of they started because of of war vets. That's true. But then, how does that explain like MS-13 or Bloods and Crips then?
Hold on, I'll get to MS-13 and Bloods and Crips in a second, but I love the word you used to describe the biker gang. Organized crime. Would you are you familiar with J. Edgar Hoover?
Of course. Yeah, the FBI, head of the FBI for a long, long time. He was like a tyrant.
That's correct. And do you know what? Now, for a tyrant, this tyrant, when people would bring to his attention that the mafia, the Italian mafia, La Cosa Nostra, was dominating the streets.
That's right, and he said it didn't exist.
Edgar Hoover said,
"Yeah, it doesn't exist. There is no organized crime." Exactly, but they also think it's because he had a lot of dirt on him. They think that they had pictures because they found out he was a cross-dresser. He had so they think it might have been blackmail. I don't know. These are theories that I just read. I have no idea.
Oh no problem. Let's not forget Winston Churchill, or you know what? More specifically, my guy who wrote Animal Farm. I forgot the writer who wrote Animal Farm. What man?
Yeah.
What's the writer who wrote Animal Farm?
Farm was was it? It wasn't shoot. I should know this on the tip of my tongue.
I know it. It's always this is one of my favorite writers, and I won't even skip this part without saying his name.
Of course. That's what I meant to say. It was George Orwell who made the ink sock. Yeah. Exactly, like one of the best stories of all time.
Do you know what Orwell stated when it came to the controls of the state? He stated that what did Orwell say? Orwell stated that basically that hold on, what were we just talking about? The mafia, right?
Yeah, we're talking about organized crime, and you're talking J. Edgar Hoover, and then Orwell got brought into this.
Yes. Orwell had stated that the people who write history are the victors. They are the ones who manipulate history. And you can see this.
Absolutely.
You can see this manipulation now, how we label terrorists from the Middle East without ever mentioning that we're the ones who went over there and basically caused them to be terrorists. Yes. We always start the story from the middle of the story. We never started from the beginning.
Absolutely agree. And it's also problem solution, or what do they call that? A problem reaction solution paradigm, which is the government creates the problem, then the problem happens like terrorism, and then they come up with a solution. It gives them more power. It's like they're the ones who created the whole problem. I mean, with terrorism specifically, okay, number one, I am a semi-expert on Islam, and so it's a two issue. Yes, we are the ones who are causing all the damn terrorism, and a lot of it has to do with it. All roads lead to Israel in this regard. But I mean, all of our work. But at the same time, it isn't to say that Islam is not. It is. I'm sorry. There's no doubt about it that Islam promotes. This is the reason why you don't see as much terrorism from other oppressed people. You don't see Armenian terrorism, even though Armenians had a genocide against them.
Hold on. Let me stop you right there, Lucas. You see how I said we're the ones who started the problem over in the Middle East.
Absolutely. Or
by our corporate empirical empire thirst for their resources. And the first thing you went to was these people's religion, as if that their religion is the cause for the United States or the West going to their country and raping them of their resources.
You misunderstood me. No, you misunderstood me. I'm saying that what we should do is leave them the hell alone, but it's not good to, you shouldn't have too many Muslims in Europe. It is all over the Quran. It is all over the Hadith. It is a political religion. But what exacerbates it is the fact that these people have a reason to fight because we're this great devil who's going over there screwing up their country. They call it oil. Oil stands for oil, Israel, and logistics. That's basically the reason that we're there. But it's exacerbated by the fact that. So my point is leave them alone. Let them live. Don't stir the bee's nest. I think we should distance ourselves from Israel. Israel brings no benefit to this country. All it does is bring this war and bloodshed and more violence and more money lost from us. Let them deal with it. But I am 100% against the mass migration into Europe. And it's going to get bad here. It's just getting more and more bad. But anyways, go ahead.
Okay. We can do religion. We can do a religion on another video. On this one, I just want to focus on because I want to get back to MS-13, the Bloods and the Crips.
Sure.
Because you've already conceded that the United States, that empires will create a problem, exacerbate the problem, and then present themselves as the solution to the problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now do you see why I say MS-13, the Bloods gang, the street gang, the Crip gang, as well as the biker gang, the gangster biker gangs, they're all basically a problem created and exacerbated by the state? Let me put it like this. Within this country, nothing major happens within this country that the government does not want to happen. Let me put it like that. It's my view that capitalism does not seek to solve problems. It's all about recurring revenue stream. The same thing it is with, how do you create a recurring revenue stream? Not by solving a problem, by ensuring that a problem continues. That's the reason why I related this to the terrorists, the situation with the terrorists. Because if you look at the whole situation with it, though I keep going and saying that we're the ones who invaded these countries, you keep going back to, oh, we shouldn't have Muslims in Europe, we shouldn't have Muslims in this, the Islamic religion is horrible, but that doesn't, regardless of how horrible or not well thought out their religion is, did that invite the United States to invade them and rape them for their?
Absolutely no, absolutely does not justify even a little bit.
And just one more point on that. Why is there refugees? Who is the one who creates the whole problem of refugees? So how can we say, oh, we can't have refugees if we're the ones who exacerbate that problem?
I know, 100%. I believe it's a conspiracy. I believe that it is done on purpose. For example, it would cost. We've done the math where if we could actually help the refugees in a safe zone with more food and everything in their own countries. It would be, we could help 12 refugees for every one that we import into Europe with welfare costs and everything. It doesn't make any sense mathematically. That means that the migrant crisis was put there on design, and they know it's going to cause terrorism. They know it is just to create the police state. Yes.
That's what I'm saying about every contradiction that exists in society, Lucas. If you think about it, there's the perception of the United States. Oh, we have these high moral values. But when you look at the reality, where do those high moral values and perception translate in our society and reality? Because if we look at the justice system, if you have a murder case and another person has a misdemeanor, but the person with the murder case has more money, they have a better chance of walking out of court without a fine than the person without a misdemeanor does without having to pay a fine. Is that moral?
A person gets pulled over and he gets arrested, or a rich person gets pulled over and gets arrested. The rich person's probably going to get off no problem. He can afford the lawyers, and the poor black person's going to go to jail and get screwed. They're going to get screwed, you know.
Oh, poor white guys too. I live in a poor white town.
100%.
I live in a poor white town, and trust me, the jail here is filled with a bunch of people, a bunch of young people that they don't give anything to do. The most they give them as ambition around here is to be a prison guard, a nurse, a low-paying nurse at that, not one of those high-paying nurse jobs, or a coal miner. That's it. That's the only option. And then they were scratching their heads wondering, I wonder why these kids are on heroin.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. That's
what I mean.
Exactly, 100%.
So my whole thing is that's the reason why it's not like I just woke up one day and decided, oh, you know what, I'm listening to the narrative of everyone. No, I actually went back in history, read up on the history of humanity, of the Babylonians, the Lydians, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans. Then we go over into Catholic Europe, Catholic controlled Europe, where it was 1,000 years under church rule, when Jesus became white all of a sudden, to when we come over here to America. And all I'm seeing is throughout the whole thing, it's been rich against poor. And in my mind, I'm wondering, why do we allow the rich to continuously perpetuate this demonic system on the rest of us when they are so few? They're like 1% of the 1%, and the rest of us are the masses, and we just allow it. We're just fanatics and zealots looking at the TV. Oh, what is this celebrity wearing? Oh, I can't wait to see that movie. I can't, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like whites are cowards because they it's as if they have blinders on, as if they don't know their own history. Should I know? And I'm Jamaican. Originally, I'm Jamaican. I didn't move to the United States until I was 9 years old. Yeah, man. You know what I mean? So I didn't move to America till I was 9 years old, and I swear I know white people history better than white people. And I guarantee you, a white person could not come to Jamaica and know Jamaica's history better than a Jamaican. So how is this possible, Lucas?
Well, I think most Americans, especially American whites, are actually known compared to Europeans to be the least cultured of white people. And the reason is because it's the arrogance. We're a very, very prideful country. We believe the world, the whole entire universe revolves around America. And so Americans are very, very, we have a reputation of being very, pompous, and we don't care. And look, we have this educational system, but I wanted to take it back to Christianity. So I'm a devout if you go on my YouTube channel, you'll see a bunch of Buddhist videotapes. So Christianity is a universalist religion, and I loved it. The original Christianity is originally a pacifist religion. And it was practiced two of the most oldest Christian kingdoms was Ethiopia, black, Armenia, which was white. Those are the two oldest Christian kingdoms. So it was a universalist religion, and they were pacifists. It wasn't till Rome took over, Constantine, where he made it become made it like a nationalism. And then he talked about, he had a vision of Jesus, and he held a shield with a cross on it and a sword. And that's when all of a sudden it became a militant religion, and it became like a government, a controlling system. But the original church was like not organized. A church would be held in somebody's house. It would be held in private, and they'd spread the gospel that way. And again, it went beyond race and ethnicity. Jesus Christ is one of the most exemplary figures in history. But okay, so then going back to what you're saying about knowing history. Okay, so I hear this a lot. Okay, so what's your point? You say, I know a lot about history that white people don't understand. So are you telling me that black people, the average black person that you hear like young Pharaoh, are really that knowledgeable? Because I can tell you half the shit Tariq Nasheed said, and Pharaoh I looked up afterwards. I mean, with young Pharaoh, I was prepared, but with Tariq Nasheed, I looked up like all the shit he was saying, and I was like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And anyway, so I mean, I'm thinking ignorance is going to be the very. be very well.
Let's get to the. I'm glad you brought those things up. First, I want to, before you go to that, please remember that too. I want to go back to tribalism, because you said that was scientific, and I wanted to break that up in 5 pieces, because it is. I don't care what the science. First off, you can only believe half of what science tells you, because science itself is a dogma. Just like religion, it become the very thing that they were fighting against in the first place. Science has become a dogma. They barely give us anything new anymore. They just tell us what we either want to hear, or tell us things that they know we'll believe. But there's nothing actually proven in fact in a lot of what scientists say. Like, they like to say there's no God, but explain to me why we have DNA, and that's DNA, last I checked, is instructions. That is a code, is it not?
Yeah, and they've also seen like computer code looking, in the universe. But I would say that tribalism in that regard is not. I didn't base it on scientific. That's based off of my own observation and seeing. And I don't think. I think tribalism was really just more an observation that I've really thought about for a long time. I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm just saying it is what it is. Like, I don't have a bias that the sky's blue. It just happens to be blue.
Oh, I'm with you. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is that a lot of things that we have are inherited beliefs. A lot of our beliefs in our minds, whether you're white or black, are inherited beliefs. We actually haven't taken the time as a society to go back and actually review all the way and what's amazing is we're in the information age while this is happening. We've actually voluntarily made ourselves ignorant. And if you ever research Socrates and why he hated the idea of democracy, it's the same reason. So my question to you is, why are the blacks and whites today in this democracy in 2017 behaving in the same manner in a time when it was not the information age, as Socrates espoused? That is the question.
But I think that it's our I think really it's our moral and cultural decay. That's my personal philosophy. I believe that it's look, the destruction of the family is. Now, I said this in debate, and I still believe it. Nobody's ever said anything that's more convincing. Like, I think the biggest problem in the black community, and trust me, it's affecting whites, but it happens slow. Now it's happening. Now it's accelerating for the white community. But the destruction of the family and the traditional family, destruction of culture, I believe that there is a reason. I'm a traditionalist. I believe that we've developed and evolved these systems that work over thousands of years, and all of a sudden we have internet, we have TV, and we have our feelings now, and then we just change and turn everything up on side of its head. And look, the black family has been absolutely decimated, and that has coincided 100% with black disparity. And now it's happening to whites. It just happened faster and sooner with the black family. Now the divorce rates are skyrocketing. Whites aren't having kids anymore. But if you look, and the reason why I mention that is because, okay, for example, this is when I say the argument ender is to me is that when you take the black person with a wife and child, they are only slightly poorer than the average white. Therefore, there's no disparity. There would be no issue. There would be nothing to say that whites are holding us down. There would be no issue because, wait, we're economically the same. We're both prospering. The black America is still the 15th most prosperous nation in the world. If you just take black, or 14th actually. If you just take black America, that'd be the 14th most richest country in the world. Is black America itself. So my point is that it's the destruction of our cultures, of our ethics, our morals, our virtues, our traditions. And again, I think that the government is against the family. I think it's against human beings. They want to create this artificial, mindless robot is what they want the average consumer to be. And they at the top, these people at the top want to keep. That's how they keep control, because they're the enlightened ones, and we're nothing but just herds. We're peons. We're just controllable little. Yeah, I said a lot.
No. You had some points to address, and I want to address them because we're back to dealing with symptoms and not going about the actual cause. But before we go to that, let's revisit where you said the blacks and their lack of knowledge as well, because I agree with you. When I moved to this country, my mom told me to assimilate become Americanized. And I realized exactly what was going on, because that's how I'm able to see society for what it is. I don't look at it as an American. And you got to remember, those who are born in America are heavily indoctrinated. Heavily indoctrinated from
Absolutely.
the girls are given little babies, basically told become a princess, desire marriage and being dressed up on your special day, and to produce babies. So that from day one, and the
That's
little
the way
boys are
it should be,
being
but they're
told,
not anymore. They're changing it. They're telling that women are equal to men, and that sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
no,
But
no.
I just
We
disagree
could
on
go
that.
on. We could go on masculinity and feminism on another video. I tell you, Lucas. We're gonna have to do this over segments of different. Not if you're sick and you only got an hour today. So I wanted, you know what I mean. I know you're not, you know what I mean. So let's just take it easy. Trust me. These. Here's my prediction, because I always heard that a theory is nothing without practicality. My prediction is society will continue to get worse more than yesterday, and tomorrow will be worse than today, much more complex, and the day after will be much more complex after that. So trust me, we have plenty of time to get to those topics. But I want to revisit when it comes to the ignorance of both races in this country. First off, we have to look at society, how Michel Foucault did, the French philosopher. He stated that since the advent of consumerism, basically, or when I keep forgetting this German's name, who said that whites should not be ashamed of their past, that they should accept that they are the most beautiful creation of God's creation. First of all, that's where racism started. That's where racism started. That's my first point on that one. And secondly, when we look at this country, even though on the ideals of the Enlightenment, and the Enlightenment we like to portray as a novel ideas, essentially what it was still about, it was based under that German Aryan superiority paradigm. Let's take, for instance, if you notice, most of the recent, since Rene Descartes, most of the recent philosophers are either from France or from Germany. Are we saying that the only smart white people are German? Because that is definitely the suggestive implication out of that, the inference out of that. And another part is, when you take both societies, though there was a low number of slave owners that were in the United States that contributed a lot of.
It was the elite, by the way, and the average white person hated it, because it's just like banking now. It's like, these are elites, and we have to pay taxes to catch slaves, and we have to go in slave inscription to catch slaves. The average person hated, average white person didn't like slavery, not because they were just such good people, but because it was like the elites would get this, and then it would bring down their labor. So the average white person got screwed.
You know what? I think if you explain that to the other people you debate from the economical side of it, I think you would
did with young Pharaoh, I did
get more of their, yeah, because I actually agree with you. At first, when you started saying it, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. But then once you put the economical factor onto it, yes, because remember what I told you, this is all about capitalism, baby. So we got to look at it as for the majority of it, whites are not slave owners. They're not the descendants of slave owners. Only the elites were. You know what I mean? And most whites in the country are not elites. So how do you make these people? So why do black people think? First off, let's not knock black people for being paranoid.
No, I know.
But when you say
that's fair.
As to why that they think the way they think, let me tell you right now, man. If you go through a problem like slavery, the Jim Crow, all the laws that have been made up, and all the way up to today, where we had to beg, or excuse me, previously where we had to beg for civil rights, and then after that up to today, where we have the war on drugs, and the minimum mandatory sentences, and all these unfair systems in the justice system. It is clear that there's like a systemic attack on blacks. I don't care what Larry Elder has to say. I don't care what Jesse Lee Peterson has to say. Voltaire back in the
Voltaire is one of my favorite philosophers, actually.
then you should know what he said about when whites first came upon blacks in Africa. When they first came upon the sub-Saharan Bushmen, they were living in communism. One man would not eat unless he shared with others. This is from Voltaire. And Adam Smith said virtually the same thing. Adam Smith, I don't know if you know about that writer or that philosopher. He's the one who developed.
This is one of the things that I argue with people on the alt-right about, is that I go, and I don't know what the answer is, but I go, one of the things I'm wondering is that maybe, and I agree with Young Farrell, I go, maybe whites' biggest crime against blacks was obviously slavery in general, but in colonization, it screwed everything up. They were living in harmony. Their systems worked in Africa. I mean, there were civilizations around Africa, but I'm saying the average Bushman, the West African, Bantu that was slaves,
right,
they were living in their harmony, and they had communes. They lived together. They lived off of natural. There's nothing wrong. That doesn't mean they're inferior, superior. That's what worked. They were happy. It was evil for us to go and screw up that entire system. But I don't agree that there is a intentional at this time. There is an intentional plot against black people. I just don't agree with it. And I still haven't been convinced otherwise.
All right, that's fine. Even though we can, even though there's a long breadcrumb trail of this.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, now, even though there's a long breadcrumb trail of this, we know about Lincoln freeing the slaves, then turning right around, and then there being the Jim Crow laws.
Oh yes, Lincoln was not a pro black abolitionist. He didn't care. He wanted to save the Union. He was super racist. He believed that blacks were inferior, and he wanted to send them back to Africa. And he had lots of. He even said that if we could save the Union, and I would make slavery as a part of the Constitution, he said he would do it. He actually said if he made slavery a part of the Constitution to keep the Union. So Abraham Lincoln is not this saint that everybody believes. It's the victors that create the.
All right, let me because we've devolved into racial lines, and I don't want to. That's not my platform at all. My platform actually is going to make everyone mad.
Okay.
Because I think everybody's stupid and everybody's tyrannical. Let's go off of privilege and off of the fact that capitalism, consumerism, tyranny starts from the first human being who said, "I don't want to do it. I want that other person to do it." That's where tyranny first started. Is when one person said, or a group of people said, "I don't feel like I should do all that work. Let's get someone else to do it." And do you know how? And this is my thing. It's as if whites forgot. Like when you hear Richard Spencer talk, or Jared, his name forgets me. What's his last name?
Jared Taylor, Richard Spencer. Who
Taylor. When you hear these guys talk, they criticize version of Europe. Did we forget that Europe, before they ever met black people, all they did with their time was go to war with each other?
Well, yeah, they're very warlike, but I mean, I think every human being, that's one thing that.
No. There you go with inherited reflexive answers, my friend. There you go with inherited reflexive answers. If that was the case, blacks would have been hard to conquer. When a bully goes to attack someone, who do they go for? The hardest person to fight?
The softest person, sure.
All right. Now follow me here. Ireland, Eastern Europeans. If you look through history, these are the two most attacked groups within Europe when whites were just attacking whites.
Yeah.
That's the reason why Ireland is called Ireland. They didn't even realize that they're calling their own land a land of ire. Who do you think named it that, Lucas? Do you think the Irish people, the native Irish people, the Aboriginal Irish people named their own country a land of ire?
No, probably not.
All right then. That's and surely a black man did an African go over there? Maybe Hannibal. And maybe Carthage invaded and did that too.
Yeah.
It was England. You know what I mean? Like let's that's what I'm saying. It's as if white people want to always avoid the fact that if there were no blacks in society, which is what Michel Foucault noticed, that do you know what white people would be doing to this country to each other? What did Abraham Lincoln say was the reason for the Civil War? I don't know if you know. I can answer that. He said because there was a lack of an enemy. The country lacked an enemy. So do you know what blacks actually serve? What the function of blacks in this society or free society, Western culture? Do you know what it really is? It is to be the enemy. Even when the towers got knocked down by 15 Saudi Arabians, do you know what the next day white people started doing? Let's get back to hating black people. When every problem happens up here where I'm at on the mountain, every problem that happens, they blame Black Lives Matter. I'm like, how does Black Lives Matter control the government?
Like, no, but Black Lives Matter would have I mean, if any white group had even halfway or even a quarter of the violent rhetoric and the amount of destruction, if there was neo-Nazis going and rioting and saying we're going to kill cops and we want to shoot them and then we want, I mean, Black Lives Matter gets the biggest pass I've ever seen on anybody in my life. Like
whoa,
literal infantile black people.
Lucas, once again, you're ignoring the history of Europe of whites committing atrocities against other whites. Whites exported. Here we go with tribalism again. Here we go. Do you want me to rip apart tribalism one more time for you, Lucas? If certain people are raised around each other, they are not racist toward each other. There's no tribalism around each other. It's not until they inherit
the same
beliefs.
No,
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were talking. Go ahead, Lucas.
No, my bad. I got to wrap up, but we can do it probably tomorrow. But we could probably do another one.
No problem.
But no.
No problem. Hey, man.
Well, I said that I think that multiracial state can work. It's just that I said that a multicultural state can work. If you have 5 people from 5 different races raised together, then they share the same culture. The definition of culture means something I pass on to you. So if I learn how to fix bikes a certain way,
inherited beliefs. You're proving my point for me there, Lucas.
So it's cultural. So yes, it's not but tribalism. That's why if you have a bunch of black people that were raised in a black neighborhood, you had a bunch of white people in the same room, like prison, for example. The whites are going to hang out with each other, no matter if they're Irish or Greek or anything like that, and the blacks are going to hang out with each other. But when you go to Africa, then you're going to have the Congolese who are going to hang out with the Congolese, and the Rwandans are going to hang out with the Rwandans, and then the Germans are going to be. So tribalism breaks to smaller and smaller and smaller components as it goes down. But culture is the thing that's the most important. Multiculturalism doesn't work. But if you have the same culture, and you have it doesn't matter what the race or the identity is, they're going to get along.
All right. Once again, I'm gonna, before you go, Lucas, I gotta leave you on this point. What you just used is tribalism, the prison system. Who controls the prison system? The government.
Sure.
There's some private. They do not. They're the ones who create the culture there. Who creates white culture? Did you grow up saying, "Oh, I should wear tight jeans," or "I should wear flannel," or "I should play golf when I'm old"? No, you were told that. Just like you said, culture is passed down. Hold on, before you cut me off, my friend. You just cut me off. Can I finish my point?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
You stated that culture is passed down one person to the other. So guess what? It is the old that is teaching you that you should be tribal. You didn't come up with that on your own, my friend. That is what I am telling you. And I don't mean just you. I'm talking about everyone's ideas have been passed down to them. Nothing is actually original. They are not espousing their own ideas that they bothered to think on. No one is going back in history and putting 2 and 2 together and wondering why this equation is the way it is right now. Instead, we all love to talk about the symptoms. The symptoms are sexy. The symptoms sell papers. The symptoms are about continuing the problem. But my job, my goal is to seek the truth, is to solve the problem. Therefore, I cannot look at the problem from a black perspective or a white perspective. I look at it from an objective perspective. What is actually, it's like Noam Chomsky said, if you are looking at the world, observing the world as an alien, outer space, diagnose the problem. That's what I'm doing. It is, and I get it. You were born in this country, you're raised this way, you got a lot of fans doing what you're doing, but me, I don't care whether black people like me, I don't care whether white people like me. I care about when I die, God, who I can prove exists scientifically, by the way. We can do that in any video you want.
I know. Trust me. William Lane Craig is like my favorite debater of all time. He's a Christian.
Because I don't believe in Jesus and stuff, but I believe in God.
No, I'm a Buddhist. I don't. But I just saying I respect him. He's a theist. He argues not for is Jesus real. He debates against the world's best atheists like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, Bart Ehrman, you name it. William Lane Craig is the best debater when it comes to this, and he debates. Oh, he also Leo, or now what's his name? Strauss. He's a guy. He's a astrophysicist from Arizona. His name is I want to say
Strauss. With the
not,
glasses, got the hair ducktailing a little bit.
Something. Oh, Krauss. Leonard.
Yeah, Strauss. That's his name, Strauss.
Yeah. No, Leo Strauss was actually the neoconservatives. It was named. Yeah, Leo Strauss was the person who like invented neoconservatism. But Lawrence Krauss, that's his name. And Leo Strauss is again, he's like a arch neocon, like the guy who started the whole neoconservative ideology. But anyways, Lawrence Krauss, this astrophysicist, very famous. And then William Lane Craig does not debate based on proving the Bible. He debates God as objective. And I believe there is an originator, a source content. I believe in God too, absolutely. Just depends, but it depends on what you define as God. I don't believe that there's a personal God where he basically was bored and then he said like, you made us, and if we don't believe in the right one, then we're going to go to hell forever and some torture and pain, punishment, some sadistic. He's not going to tell me who he is.
No. Listen, Lucas, that's a whole other video. I'm telling you, we could do videos forever on these, and we will. We will. You're sick. Go get your rest, buddy. I appreciate you so much. Everyone, thank Mr. Lucas King for joining us on Axiom TV. I'm Jason V. Human. Once again, a meaningful, civilized discussion between two thinkers, and an exchange of ideas. That's what we're trying to get to, is to get to the actual truth. Another thing before you go, Lucas, did you realize that if is maintained, that eventually mathematically that's incest?
Yeah. Wait, hold on. Say it again. I didn't hear it. Say it again.
If racial purity is a concept that is actually acted out, then it mathematically becomes incest.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. Like they say that when you see people that look like each other the most, like the reason Europeans are so spread out is because there's not a lot of Europeans, to be honest. We're kind of a minority in the world, but we're spread out a lot, about like divided between mountains and stuff like that. So you see like they're, anyways, it's a whole other topic, but yeah, the more people look like each other is because like in Asia, they look like each other a lot because they're condensed in small areas and they keep marrying each other. Yeah.
And that's why I'm against racism. I'm trying to stop the spreading and the sharing of recessive genes, because that explains why our society is so stupid. No one wants to actually look at. I wonder if it's because we'll talk about that another time.
Especially when you mention recessive genes. I got a lot of
talk. Good talking to you, Lucas, man. I told you I wasn't going to be like the others. I told you I wasn't going to treat you like the others.
No, I appreciate it, brother. You take care, man.
Take it easy, my friend.